I think this is a great question. I focus on this a lot with a lot of my friends and clients. Critical thinking involves the willful engagement of the reasoning process in order to appraise or dissect information to solve problems. Willful engaging is kind of the key term of this concept of critical thinking, as you want to be able to not just mystically know where that information is coming from. It's not coming from the beyond. It's really just you are consciously presented with a problem that needs to be solved and you recall it on demand. That's different than what I call in my household the monkey brain, where you have an answer, you just don't know exactly how to access it, and that's key. I used to think that long-term memory was not pivotal to critical thinking. I just finished a book called Range that really explains very well generalized knowledge in the effort for critical thinking, and how absorption and transfer of knowledge can really help that critical thinking process. And of course, that's all stored in the long term memory. That's why practice is so important for the recall of information. Now, do you want to recall this information as quickly as possible for something like, Jeopardy? Are you going to need to know it on demand, or are you going to have time to recall this information? That's very important when you go into critical thinking, whether or not you need that information in your short-term memory versus your long-term memory. If you know you're going to need some information, let's say you're focusing on concepts that are going to be very important for your career, then long-term memory is going to be pivotal for your critical thinking process later on. Now, to pass a test in the short term, maybe some rote memorization so it's in and out quickly could be useful, but then again, that transfer that can give you the ability to explain and answer critical thinking problems that may be useful if you're not planning on working alone. Now, this is connected to long-term memory because during the critical thinking process of the brain, the willful engaging often relies on remembered information. That's what I have on the screen, and that's what I just talked about in uh, how those connections are made in the brain between long-term and short-term memory and the practical applications. The memory is composed of three basic parts. Attention, noticing the information in the first place. Think on Jeopardy, you notice the answer that you have to recall the question that it is associated with. So that initial recall to even recognize that there is a problem that needs to be solved. So attention is step one. Storage, this information is either stored in the short term or long term memory, like I explained before, and the data stored in the long term memory lasts longer, which I also previously explained. And then step three is the retrieval, and this is the recall, that snap, you know, remembrance that is the difference between making you seem smarter, making you seem, are they doing a pregnant pause, or they um, or do they really know what they know? So the retrieval is key. And the retrieval process of accessing that stored information when the need arises is based on your own personal needs. Do you have uh, do you have the type of memory that is slow to recall but can store a lot, or do you have the type of memory that uh, stores less but has that quick recall and you need to remind yourself more? Now, in a, I love to use myself and my wife and as an example. I can store a lot in my long-term memory, but my recall is very slow. My wife is the other way around. She needs a lot more reminders. I read a book once and it's stored in there for long-term memory pretty much forever. And the longer between refreshes, uh, it's pretty much the same recall. Everyone's different, so it's good to know yourself. And these are great questions. Thank you.